Welcome back, everybody. I'm Zach Shelley, one of the co-hosts of Management Unfiltered.
And I'm Kirk Teachout, and it is another great episode of When and Why. And we are going to be going over when and why you should hire another front desk. I came across someone the other day who had a $2 million practice, great practice, solo doc even.
$2 million.
$2 million. He had a $2 million practice. He had, I think, 3 assistants, 2 hygienists, but he had 5 front office admins.
Why? What do they all do?
That's what I asked him. And I was just like, why? That doesn't make sense. And
he should totally have 8. Like,
yeah, that's exactly. It's like, but like, okay, strip all of that. I just wanted to paint that picture because the front desk and the front office admin, whatever you want to call it, the front of a dental practice is the most overstaffed position, period. I see it in almost every single office. Honestly, a lot of times it feels like you're maybe understaffed, but it's not. It's just that you don't have the right systems in place in the front for it to be running. Because I'll be honest, like I ran our whole front for 8 months with no knowledge for 2 doctors, and I was twiddling my thumbs and getting everything done still.
Yeah, that's a key point. Listen, he was getting things done, not just twiddling his thumbs, because anybody could sit at the front and twiddle their thumbs and not get jack done. So Kirk was actually, I think that's a perfect time to sport this shirt. So guys, if you're watching,
I twiddle my thumbs. Oh, okay. Yes, this is my I already handled it shirt. You're welcome.
Thanks to Max Assist. That was such a great promotional thing. Lori Streeter, if you guys know who she is, she's absolutely incredible, sent me the shirt. So give her a shout out if you want to get one. Yeah, front desk, I feel like is always overstaffed. I've been in so many practices. There one on the west coast of Florida. I did like some training on Open Dental when they transferred over there from a previous software. And I was like, I'm looking, and they had so many people. I was like, so what do you do? And they're like, well, I check in the patients. I was like, okay, so what do you do? I verify their insurance. Like, okay, what do you do? I answer the phone. I'm like, okay, and what do you do? And they're like, I look at blah, blah, blah. I'm like, doc, how much do you pay them? I'm like, let me see your P&L. I'm like, dude, you have way too many people. And there are very few offices that I found that don't have enough. And I think when you don't have enough, there's way other big problems going on that like not having enough front team, you know, is not nearly the problem. It's always there's way too many, but it's not being run efficiently. I think that's the thing is like you have that office. I don't know what office you're talking about, but I can almost guess that office was not running well with that many people.
No. Well, I mean, they were talking to me, right? Well,
that is true. Yeah.
They were struggling already. So, which is what I do, right? I'm kind of like, you know, undercover boss coming in and like reviving.
Struggle Bus Incorporated.
I want us to, in these When and Why series though, like I want us to go over obviously, when do we need that second person? Maybe if we have 1 front desk, or if we have 2 front desks, or 3, maybe we have 3, maybe we have multiple providers, right? When and why, really.
Hence the name of the series.
Right. Get that extra front desk. Because I think that's the hardest part, which is why we're doing this series, is because most of the time it's like we don't know. Like we're just kind of throwing things at a wall hoping it sticks. And sometimes it does. And sometimes you're like, oops. And now you don't want to let go of that person, but you need to. So like, what does that look like to you, Zach?
So we added, I love that smile on your face, Kirk, because we run 2 totally different types of practices. So it's really fun to kind of go back and forth. So I have 2 separate front desks. And when I say that as teams, so I don't have 2 front desk team members, but I have 2 separate, one for the pedo side, which we have 2. And the pedo side's running like $2.5 million. Now, there's a lot of days that, one of them's on vacation and there's only one working and they're able to do it. Is it a stretch and a grind? Absolutely. The reason being why two is kind of perfect for that number on that side, because it's not so much the volume of phone calls and appointment settings, but it's that quick turnaround with pedo, because you have a lot of 30-minute appointments, being able to get the patients checked out in a timely manner, because patients don't like to have to stand and wait, or stand and wait and not be acknowledged to check in. So that's the aspect that we have. We have two over on that side. Now we have three on the general side, but they're doing almost 5 million or a little over 5 million this year. So we have three on that side.
Yeah, I'm doing math in my head. I was gonna pull up the calculator, but I was like, no, I can do this. I can do this. But that sets perfectly with what my approach is. Because to me, it's 1.5 million. Like, that's the number, right? You can have one front desk up to 1.5 million. And at that point, it's past that, it gets a little, like, because the patient experience is everything, right? And we talked about this already, right? It's a circular motion, and we want as little friction as possible. So whether that's answering the phones, whether that's checking somebody in and acknowledge somebody walking through the front door, or it's when they get to the front, you're not stumbling over stuff trying to get stuff together and working with three different people.
Yeah, let me pause you real quick, Kirk, because I have to make this point so people understand where you're going with this. When he says 1.5, we're talking bread and butter GP practice. We're not talking like an all-on-4 practice that, you're like, this is a bread and butter GP practice. So just hear out, this is not a pedo practice. We've already discussed pedo really quick, and we're in and out with that. This is bread and butter GP. So sorry, Kirk, go.
But that even works with pedo, though, because you have two for 2.5 million. So like that still works.
Correct.
Because
yeah.
once
And
again,
we
it's
definitely hit the 3 to
turnaround.
3.5 with that. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like that's where you'll hit it.
Yeah, and I think too. So we have added a fourth seat that's not. I don't consider them part of our front desk. All they do, they're more of a behind the scenes seat that handles 100% of insurance verification and all the new patient phone calls, but they don't actually interact with the patients in the practice. So they're in their own separate space. Because one thing that we've noticed with our practice, that we're on our third month straight seeing over 360 new patients a month. For 3 months straight, we've hit over 1,000 patients this quarter, which is insane. New patients, which, yeah, we're flexing, bro. So the reason we added that one, and it took me 8 months before I actually did it and pulled the trigger, because I wanted to make sure we were ready for it, because it's a cost. But this is perfect for this why and when theory, because once you start seeing a decline or frustration with your patients not being able to get through to the line, that's an indicator that win is now, because you need to be able to answer all your calls. So we were struggling to keep up with the call flow because there's so many calls coming through. They're having to go to voicemail, and then we're having to return it, and we're getting back to all of them, but we're not answering every single call when they're coming through. And you want that answer rate and that conversion rate to go up. So that's why we said, okay, we're hitting this mark and we're not quite to that point, but our volume is so high with our new patient flow that we actually need a dedicated person for that. And we justify that because of that new patient flow. We're able to get that many more patients on the schedule, and the amount of production that ends up on the schedule way outperforms the cost of that team member. Now, what that also does is you can be smart about it, is if you have a front desk that gets sick, guess where that new patient person goes? Into the seat the other person isn't there, so that you're able to keep that patient experience going. So there are a lot of tactics when you do add that. There's certain scenarios you can that are going to go out of that 1.5 million formula, right? That you can make it happen, but you have to know your practice, which is going to lead into another episode. We're not going to talk about it now, but it's I'm just going to kind of give that prequel of like, how well do you know your practice? So look forward to that episode, because we're going to be talking about that on another one, which is going to be awesome. But you do have to know where you stand, right, Kirk? I mean, you can't. That dude that hired those 5 people, he has no clue where his practice is at.
No, and no, yeah, no, he really has no clue, and he's burning out, right? But he doesn't know why, which is another episode we're going to do. Yeah. So, but he's burning out and he doesn't know why. And, you know, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I mean, it's managing a team, right? I mean, that's the so when you add more people, naturally it gets harder. But the reason why, we run lean and mean and can where our payroll's at 18% is because, and I know like a lot of people are like, what? It's like 18% payroll. It's like, it's because you can actually do more if you really define what your team is doing, right? And getting those systems efficient and understanding it. I completely rebuilt the whole front office and what we were doing. So that way, when I finally hired somebody, I hired two people, had zero experience. I think one of them did have experience, but not very long. One didn't know a root canal from a crown. And so when they came in, I had all of these systems in place to where they were building $16,000 days on a schedule efficiently the first week because it's just drag and drop. They were able to answer the phones properly because we focus on patient experience. The front, I want to only focus on the two things I can leverage with the front because they're not providers, right? So technically they're not making you money, right? They're not generating revenue like a doctor or a hygienist would be. So the only two things you can actually leverage in that position are the patient experience, whether people are getting greeted well and going out well with less friction, or the schedule. Those are the only two things you can leverage in that position. So now, if they're chasing down insurance, you're losing money because you're paying somebody to chase something that's already discounted. That's a problem. So that's the first thing I suggest outsourcing, which we're not going to go into on this episode. But that's the first thing I suggest outsourcing is insurance, whether it be verification, whether it be denials, AR, whatever. Like,
You save a ton of money doing that. Yeah, that's one of the biggest misconceptions. I talk to docs all the time, and they're like, they want $4 or $8 for this verification or full breakdown put in the PMS, and I'm like, okay, but your front desk that makes $27 an hour, it took them 45 minutes to put that in. Do the math and see how much that one just cost you. And a lot of times it's just and docs, I'm not saying this to be rude, but it's ignorance because you just don't know because you haven't thought of that way.
Or you haven't done it.
Yeah.
Like you don't do it. So you don't know.
That's why we're making you non-ignorant with this and saying, hey, like you're overpaying for things because you don't know the systems. And that's the thing is kind of going into that. It's like you laid out a practice, which is yours, that's got systems that are put in place that are very well and teams know expectations and how to do things. And it's really easy in a practice like that to say, okay, now we need our next front desk. We're hitting, 3 million. So we're going to add our second front we hit 3 million. We're projecting, to be over top of that. So we're kind of maxed out with those two. We're going to add the next one so we can continue to grow. But on a practice that really doesn't know where they're at and implementing systems, like you really kind of have to take that step back and kind of ground your practice before you even decide to make any moves, right? I mean, it's kind of one of those hard ones. And this may end up being like a multi-series, like deep dive on like, well, in order to get that next front desk, like we've got to look at these systems of how do you bring your patient in? How do you have your schedule? Like, what are you doing with your new patients? How are you opening up more ability to see more new patients in your schedule? We've been super creative with that. Not a lot of people do it the way we are, but once again, that's the way we're able to see so many new patients every single month and retain, I think 86% of them, which is crushing the national average. But there is in my mind, Kirk, I think you can agree. Yeah, I'm just going to flex again. I've been doing a lot of housework. I feel like my muscles are getting really big, but y'all can make fun of me in the comments. Be like, maybe we'll make an episode because there's a dental unfiltered episode. It's my favorite title, and I love Andrew Vallow. Vallow, this is just shout out to you. I just thought it was hilarious. Matt put the episode is Andrew Vallow dumb? So I think we should just have one. Is Zach Shelley's muscles big? And you all can say no. He's just a scrawny little dude. Sometimes you just need to pull the trigger and add that front test because you know you need it and you know your practice. But sometimes we're just sitting there blind and we don't understand what's going on and we don't have the systems, but sometimes adding that person allows it. So something I thought in my line is like a lot of times I had girls like, they're like, we need that fourth person for like ever, for months. I'm like, we're not quite ready, guys. And I'm like, we're just not there. And then once we started, moving through and I started seeing those numbers increase and increase and increase. And then like 33% increase in new patients starting from January 1 now. I'm like, okay, we need it. Like we're past that threshold that we can handle it. So let's go. And instantly we saw the relief and patient satisfaction. So it was like that stress went like this and patient satisfaction went like this. And when you start seeing those metrics actually happen, then you know you've made the right decision. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to make that dive, but if you know your practice well enough, you're going to know. And if you hear your team members like legitimately listen to them, like we recorded in another episode, like listen, hear them. Doesn't mean you have to do it right away, but hear what they're saying. Check in with your team and say it's just one. How are you doing? What are you going to accomplish this week? I'm stealing that from you, Kirk. You know, and then at the end of the day, what worked, what didn't work, like, and you can start getting that not just off a numbers and KPI standpoint, but you're actually pulling like a physical metric from that team member of like, do they look like they're absolutely going to die at the end of the day and they're just wrecked, or are they smiling?
Well, it's a feedback loop. I mean, you're getting it, right? But most front desks are really doing 4 or 5 different positions, right? So now if we can get them to where they're focused on those 2 things, right? Sure, they know about insurance. Like I have trained our front on at least having the knowledge of insurance so that way they can communicate with patients on it. And our insurance verification only does it like so far in advance. So it's just like, okay, like they need to be able to do some stuff, but that's like 5%. Everything else is out of there.
So what Kirk is saying, guys, and I'm eating some they're Smarties, but they're from Germany. So they're actually like M&Ms. My wife just got back from Romania and I love candy. So this is my squirrel moment because I told you guys I got ADHD like out the wazoo. So you want to make yourself happy while you're doing things in dentistry, eat candy. And I hope this doesn't get edited out because that's amazing. And I've totally lost my train of thought.
Anyway, so the front, right, is doing 4 or 5 different positions. Yes, good.
So what Kirk is saying, and I caught on after a little bit, is the things you're taking away from the front desk, you're outsourcing to somebody that's more efficient and more cost effective for your practice.
And you don't have to worry about culture. Like you don't have to add on more variables to your culture, which causes more burnout, right? So yeah, it's so much easier and more cost effective. And like now, you know, the way I pitch it to most people is just like, hey, you're paying, even if it's the cost of one salary or like one amount of payroll for one person, now you have a team of 5 nerds who love what they're doing and are experts in it for the cost of one. And you don't have to worry about them in the practice.
Yeah. It's just like laying that law down, like work smarter, not harder. A lot of times we're really good in dentistry. It'd be like, I don't want somebody else in my system. I don't want something else running. I don't want another subscription. But it's like, yeah, I hear you, but you're dumb because you're just making it harder on yourself. So this would be my suggestion to docs. I love picking on docs in this podcast because it's just a lot of fun. But I have a really good rapport with our docs at our practice. Like, if your office manager has something legitimate to present to you that will make your practice more efficient at the front, at least listen and give it a legitimate shot, especially when it comes to insurance processing, insurance verification, patient engagement softwares that make it to where like you don't answer that call, that patient gets a text and says, hey, I'm so sorry we missed your call. We're going to be right back with you. Or like Mango's new AI assistant, it's actually pretty freaking awesome. Like you miss a call, like you can actually have that after a certain, I was just talking with them today. If you miss or you don't pick up a call after a certain amount of rings, you can have your switchboard set to automatically go to that AI attendant. So you literally will never miss a call again.
Yeah, the voicemail's dead now. It's pretty cool. We'll do a whole episode on AI and the like that. So don't go too deep into that. We may get Kevin on. That'll be good.
I'm done with my squirrel moments for this episode. I didn't have one last episode, so.
Well, good. But no, like piggybacking off of what you're saying and getting back to the front being overworked and to your point too of checking in, not checking on, right? Of like, hey, yeah, I stole that from you. Like we just steal things back and forth, right? But it's about just asking simply, like, because my team will tell me, to be honest, like, and with our bonus system, like they don't want to share more profit if they're okay with working a little harder, right? So it's like, oh, I'll just ask them like, hey, like we have one assistant right now, one assistant. because the other one's on maternity leave. We're like, do you want us to get a temporary a temporary assistant in here, like to help you? Because they were running ragged, and she was just like, no, I've got it. Like it's a little harder, but like I'm good. I'm like, okay, because like we'll get somebody. Like, but we have a bearing on our practice and our team, and they will tell us if like, hey, we need somebody, but if you don't have that good like feel for your practice, or maybe you just don't have good intuition, then you can look at the numbers to understand when and why you should get a front desk, which to me, my number, which this is an elite number, what elite offices do, which is 20 to 25% of payroll. Like if you can get it 20, my goal is 20% every single time. So if you can get your payroll at 20% without your salary docs, just your admin, your hygiene, and your assistants. If you get all of that in there, if it's at 20%, that's gold. Now, if you're at 18, like we are right now, I have wiggle room because typically an admin person is only going to be 1 or 2% of your P&L. So if you're looking at it like, okay, well, maybe we need to start looking for somebody somewhere, right? And most likely it's going to be that front, or maybe a behind the scenes person, a backup quarterback, I like to call, right? Like somebody who can like in the nick, like just, okay, the front two are already busy with a patient. Another patient comes up like, hey, what can I do for you? Right. Or it could be an assistant, a rover that only runs sterilization and flips rooms, like something like that. Right. But that's a way that you can kind of get your bearings of, okay, that 1.5 million may be the mark. Or if your payroll is under 20%, then you're like, okay, maybe now's the time. Because if I get my payroll up to 20%, then that's going to add on an extra $500,000 to the top line. And it's only going to adjust the bottom line by a few percentage points, which we can go over P&Ls later. But
and when you go over the metrics, I'm thinking more and more like the numbers Kirk's talking, like that is a very, very elite number. Industry average, Scott Luna preaches anything under 28%, which 28 I feel is high. Industry average, a standard, if you give one singular number, will be the 25% mark, which I think we can all agree on. If you're sub 25%, like you do have some wiggle room, but you have to be strategic about it to not push you over that number. And I think this will dig deeper into like how well you know your practice, because like we can talk about ways to cut your overhead without cutting team members, but actually being more efficient, bring less on the top line as far as overhead costs, and bringing more on your bottom line as far as profitability. There's a lot of overlooked areas that practices are overspending, and docs don't even know.
I'm going to add that to the list of topics now.
Guys, you're going to hear that all the time, and this list is real, and it's a beautiful Google Sheets list that just talks about our ideas of what subjects are open and not open. So that is another thing I'm just going to throw in here, guys. If you have topics that you want to listen to, and that maybe we touched on a point, and you're like, hey, can you do a deep dive on that? Like, we're happy to do that. So suggest these things, because like front desk, like you can hear us talking, like it's bringing up so many other points. Like a lot of times, like if you need another team member, it's not just because of a singular thing of like, oh, I need another team member. You have significant indicators. How often are you checking your phones to see your missed call percentage? Like, right? Like that's going to be another big indicator. Your phones, I guarantee you, I'm going to ask you, Kirk, if a new patient calls your practice and you don't answer, what are they going to do? Right there. Yeah. They're not going to leave you a message or text you or call you again. Like I can't remember the actual statistic. It's over 80% of new patients when they call, if you don't answer, they're calling another practice. You lost them. You might get lucky and call them back and they answer. And like, oh yeah, that was where I wanted to go in the first. That was my first choice. Like you might get lucky, but like you can't live off of luck. You have to be very intentional and strategic about how you do things. And that's the same thing with implementing our front team. Because the front, if you think about it, if you're listening to this episode, if you're driving, don't close your eyes because you're going to crash your car. But everybody else, if you close your eyes, I'm trying to get Kirk to laugh. I almost got him there. There you go. I got him. Think about this. When you walk in, the first person you see is somebody who's greeting your patients, which is part of your front team. When they walk out of the operatory and they go to check out and pay, they're dealing with your front desk. They're the first and the last thing they see. They're the face of your company. And so the other thing is how good they are, right? Like just not just needing another one, but getting a quality front team member that's gonna like really, really crush it. But front is so important in so many ways.
And I'm going to ruffle some feathers with this statement, but I'm going to be bold and just say it because your front is arguably the most important position in your office.
Kirk, I'll back you 110% on that. Every time I hire a front desk team, I say you are the face of the company.
Yes, they are. They're the most important position in the practice because they are the first, like you said, they are the first and the last touch point of every single patient. If somebody calls and it's a terrible experience, they're not going to come. If they get to the front and there's a lot of friction and turmoil, they're going to be walking out and being a walking negative billboard for you. So you have to have a solid team in the front. Otherwise, all the stuff in the back that's complementing it is going to be null and void. Like it's just not going to work. So like sure, there are times where the provider can carry the rapport with a patient to keep them coming, even if their team lacks that, because that happened with our OBGYN. And even he was saying, like, I have no control over the team. Like, they were true staff. And you will hear me always say team. I never say staff because staff is an infection and you need to get amoxicillin and get that stuff out. Right. But you always have to have a solid front team. So that way your first and last touch point are excellent to increase patient referrals, to make sure that your practice is healthy and continues longevity.
We have people listening, like, I said bread and butter. Like, you have to, if you're in a different specialty, still take the points that we made. Like, if you're a full arch office, like, to do 1.5 is not hard at all. I think your markers are probably going to be 2.5 to 3 per front office, but you're also going to have other positions that go in with that. Like, you're going to have a treatment coordinator that's next level because you guys are selling cases that are $30, $50, $60,000. So you have like somebody, your front desk structure is a bit different. So if you have questions and comments on like different specialties, like we can probably help with that. It's just a different style, but it still doesn't change the fact that we're talking of how important it is to have a structured front team and how important those touch points are, because the same effect happens. Like, even if you have a singular rock star practice, right? And this front desk is the best front desk you've ever had, and you're pushing 2.5 million, they're able to do it. Like, that person at some point will break. That system will break, and you don't want it to break to where you get a bad review because she physically didn't have time to get you checked in or check your insurance.
Or you can tell.
Yeah. You can tell the stress on their face and they don't enjoy it. I can't tell you how many times, like, I've heard it in our own practice. I'm happy to admit that because we're not perfect. Like, they're like, "Are you okay? You seem like you're having a tough day." And one of the girls like, "Oh, I'm totally fine." And they're like, "Okay, I'm just checking in on you." And like, the girl actually was, and I'm like, "See, but like, even things like when you're fine, like, you have to go above and beyond that. Like, people pick up on that. But like, when you're short staffed or you're understaffed, and I'm not talking about call outs, but like, you don't have enough team members, it's really bad for your practice. When you have too many, it's almost equally the same because you have all these hands in the pot. And it's like, yes, many hands make light work, but like, you have too many hands in the pot, like, it's like nothing's getting done right because it's just chaotic. So it's like, reevaluate. And like, if you do have too many, don't get too scared. Like, you can get creative. If you have 5 and you're doing 2 million, like, you're going to need to get rid of 3 of them. You might get lucky to keep one of them, one extra to do something creative like what we're doing. And maybe this is another way that we didn't touch, Kirk, and maybe we can just touch on this for a minute before we exit this episode, because this is something I'm super fond of doing is dual trained team members. So say your doctor's pushing the next marker. There are a lot of assistants that make really, really good front desk team members that you can actually make them a hybrid to where you're able to get that assistant to help the doctor produce, which is increasing that top line and keeping your payroll percentage down because you're producing more. But then on certain days where you're super busy, as far as admin work, they can kind of bounce back and forth, and you can have a dual purpose team member, which I think is a really, really efficient use of the office and your team members' time.
Well, and if they bring that patient to the front and the team is completely busy, all they have to do is walk around and say, "Okay, Miss Jane, yeah, it's going to be 2837 today. Go ahead and take the payment. And your next appointment, which day works better for you? Tuesday at 3:30? Great, I can do that for you." And just go ahead and just do it. And the rest of the front doesn't even know.
I mean, I've assisted all of our docs many times, like when we're short staffed, and I walk up and I know my girls are busy. I'm like, hey, Joanne, come over here with me real quick. I'll take care of you. We'll get you settled up. And they're like, oh, that was amazing. Or if they're in the back and they know there's nothing to collect, and that you can run the claim back there, have everything done, and say, hey, Joanne, I've taken care of everything right here. Here's your appointment card. I'm just gonna walk you right up front, and you can head straight to your car. I don't have to do anything else. Nope, you're all set. You're ready to go. And then they don't even have to bother the girls that are already busy, and they're out. And that also creates a sense of great culture, because the girls are like, oh my gosh, did you see Susie just took care of all that for us, and we didn't have to stop what we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, if you can cross train and have those systems in place to where people at least have the basic knowledge, right? It doesn't have to be, crazy stuff, but the basic knowledge to be able to get things done, even when somebody can't get to it, then it just elevates the patient experience and reduces that friction.
They come and help the front desk with unscheduled treatment calls.
Yeah.
It's gold. And it works so well because they don't want to sit and twiddle their fingers. And the girls up front, if they're swamped, they're like, oh, this is amazing. And they'll help fill hygiene for us. There's all these things that, you empower those skills. You can get away with having less front desk, especially if you can't find a good one, but you got some really good assistants or hygienists. When they have downtime, utilize them for those skills and maximize it that way till you can find the right person in the seat.
Okay, we're gonna stop it there, guys. This has been another hard-hitting episode of Management Unfiltered When and Why series with the front desk. We're gonna go over these a lot. Leave a 5-star review and in the comments. Make sure to tell us why you loved it, what you want to listen or hear from us, and also subscribe, share, do the things that you always do. Hit us up too in Zach's group, and then also me on Instagram at Kirk Teachout. We'll have it in the show notes. But until next time, thank you so much. We hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks, guys. Take it easy.